So the first reason why 99% of landscape photographers ought to use zoom lenses over prime lenses is that these days zoom lenses are of such a high quality that even though you print large, they are almost indistinguishable from prime lenses. So generally prime lenses are sharper than zoom lenses, at least when they're from the same generation. However, zoom lenses have become such good quality by now that they are almost or just as good as prime lenses in regard to sharpness and general image quality. I'm obviously not saying that zoom lenses are as good as prime lenses, especially not when I'm using a super zoom like my 28 to 200 millimeter. However, what I am saying is that unless you print very, very large at highest quality with the best printer in the world on either super glossy photo paper or on metal or something that really brings out all the details in your prints, then you will not be able to see the difference between a prime and a zoom anyway. So right now I am out in a beautiful swampy forest. As you can see here, look at all these gnarly and characteristic trees. Like here and this cluster here, just everywhere. Looks amazing. It's definitely also in forest landscape photography that you would want to make sure that you have optimal, good quality glass, especially because branches out on the edges can often be like smeared out. You have general information in the entire scene. However, it's also just so much easier to use zoom lenses. And in a scene like this, as in most other forest scenes, that is highly relevant. So for this specific photo right here, I'm at almost 70 millimeter, f16, ISO 50, gives me a shutter speed of almost 1 second. And the main reason why I shoot at f16 is to get the entire scene in focus. When I'm shooting at almost 70 millimeter, if I'm shooting below f16, there's a big risk that I'm throwing the background out of focus, and that's not what I want. It's so foggy right now that I actually do want to have everything in focus. I prefer to have all the information in the scene, foreground trees in focus, background trees in focus. The conditions this morning are the best I've had here by a landslide. As you can see, I'm back at my swampy trees that I've visited quite a few times over the past year since I found them the first time. The fog is just so thick this morning. It's almost as if like Slender Man is waiting out there. I can see one of my friends over here. He's also come out. But right now, like, oh, it's so good. The sun is almost breaking through, as you can see here. So I'm photographing this scene here in front of me, and you can see the composition, more or less something like this here. And especially in a scene like this, or in a location like this, it is so beneficial to have a zoom lens, because just a few inches to the right, to the left, up or down, back and forward especially, just makes a massive difference in regard to the separation between the trees. So if you want to have proper separation between the trees, you may need to push 1 meter, 2 meters back and forward, and then you have to zoom in or zoom out a little bit, just so you make sure that the canopy is more or less covered by branches, so you don't have those specular highlights in the canopy. The reason why you don't want those is that they drag a lot of attention. And this is exactly where the zoom lens comes in, because you need to change your focal length again and again and again. And if you were using primes, you would have to change your lens all the time. And that takes time away from actually photography. And this is where I by far prefer to have a zoom lens. I can even compromise on the zoom lens. I would rather prefer a little bit more focal range than I would prefer image quality. So I use my 28 to 200, even though I have a 24 to 105. But being able to have this massive zoom range from 28 to 200, for me it makes a massive difference. Because I also have to vlog this, film this, think about what I'm going to say, and take pictures at the same time. So where I can optimize in regard to time makes a whole lot of difference for me.
Right now is the last chance you have to benefit from my spring sale in 2023, where you can get entire $100 off my big editing course, Photoshop for Landscape Photographers. The course is designed in a way so you can use either Camera Raw or Lightroom as your RAW converter and finish up in Photoshop or bring the photo back into Lightroom. So if you want to learn all my editing techniques and fully realize the potential in your RAW photos, there's a link and a coupon code in the description of the video to get $100 off. If you watch this video after the sale has ended, check the description anyway, as there may be another coupon code to save a bit of money.
So I've returned to that favorite composition of mine. If you saw my photo fairy tale long lens forest landscape photography from some weeks ago, you know which one I'm talking about. The one with the tree and the elongated hole that you can see right there. So because I actually have quite a lot of like specular highlights up here, you can really see the sky through the canopy. I'm going with a slightly tighter crop this morning. I have a little bit up here and here and here, but I can definitely do something about that in Photoshop. So slightly longer focal length, and I'm all the way out, just beyond 100mm. I need to focus bracket this one. This is good with the Sony A7R5. It can make the focus stacking by itself. I also have like a little bit of light coming in and hitting the tree just there on the side, and I think that can give quite a nice color difference between the bluish fog and then the warmer light on the tree. Looks beautiful. So that just happened so fast, the fog just vanished. There's still some atmosphere, a little bit of moist in the air. So if I angle myself correctly and shoot more or less towards the sun, then I will still have that atmosphere backlit, and that gives the separation that I want. But all the way around me here, like I can definitely see like a kilometer away by now. So it is very thin, the atmosphere, but nevertheless shooting into the sun, still have a little bit so I can get that separation. I have been running around like a madman trying to get a lot of different compositions, and right now I'm working on this one here. So I'm using this tree as the foreground, and then this mid-ground-ish, and then in here to this cluster of trees that kind of becomes the focal point. And as you can see, the atmosphere is backlit, so I still have some separation between the layers through the scene. And exactly because I've had to work so fast, it has just been so good not to have to change my lens all the time, change different primes. Yes, I would have had sharper images, but in the end you cannot see the difference. And in regard to the perceived sharpness, I can always make a high pass filter in Photoshop, and in that regard I would actually argue that a photo with a high pass filter taken on a less sharp lens will actually look more sharp on print, at least as long as you're not printing in super duper highest quality and throwing it up on a 2x3 meter wall and putting your nose against it to look at the micro details. But in a photography book, it will look fantastic on a frame on the wall, 1 meter by 60 centimeters, something like that. Looks amazing. Now obviously I don't know if it's like 1% of landscape photographers who prefer to use primes and 99 who prefer to use zoom lenses, but the point goes without saying. Oh yeah, just running around trying to find a lot of different compositions here. Like I'm really like just thinking about separation, and trying to have some kind of focal point in there. Maybe bring in a leading line and some framing from some of the trees. And these are of course all topics that I cover in my 2 ebooks, Landscape Composition 1 and 2. So if you want to learn more about composition in landscape photography, be sure to pick them up. There is a free light version of each of them. The ebooks are easy to read, minimal text, and they are full of examples. In that way I make sure to get to the point fast, and hopefully you will actually learn something from these ebooks. And there are links to both the free light versions and the full versions down in the description of the video.